Hi guys, welcome back to Hillside Homesteading. I'm Salisha and today I'm doing a video on weeding the garden and also staking the tomatoes. I purchased these stakes. They're like these little bamboo sticks. Let me just show you what they look like. And they basically look like these bamboo sticks. I'm going to be using these to stake up my tomatoes today because my tomatoes are really tall and some of them are starting to bend over. And in order to prevent pests from getting to your tomatoes and things like blight, you do want to make sure your tomatoes are staked and off the ground. I'm also going to make sure I prune the very bottom leaves off the tomatoes so that when I water them, I'm not going to get any splashback hitting the leaves. You do want to make sure your tomatoes are dry from the top. You don't want the leaves to get wet. So I'm going to be removing the bottom leaves. I already weeded the garden. It took me about 20 minutes to completely weed the garden. And I'm going to also put down some more wood chips, which will help prevent all of these weeds from going back. And I'm also going to stake these. I do have a t-shirt that I cut into pieces, into just long strips. I'm gonna stick this in the ground and then I'm gonna tie the tomatoes to this. It's easier to use a t-shirt or something that's more of a material than it is to use thread or string because that might cut into your tomato plants. So that's what I'm gonna do today. So let's get started. So I have my stakes, my cut up t-shirts. I just cut them into strips like this, and I'm going to stick the stake in the ground beside each tomato and then tie them up with the piece of t-shirt. So let's do that. So just going right beside the tomato, pressing it all the way in. And you want to press it in far enough that the tomato won't bend or break the stake. There we go. And then again, I'm going to make sure I have a couple of these branches here that's actually going to hold it. So I'm going to go right here, tie a little knot. I tie a knot here first on the tomato, not too tight. And then I'm going to tie another knot onto the stake. And then I'm going to use the two ends to tie them together. There we go. Let's continue to go and get these all staked. So one knot around the tomato, leave enough string on this end. Then you want to tie the long end around the stake. And then you're going to tie these two ends together. As these tomatoes grow, you're going to have to tie them to the stake higher and higher as they grow. I'm going to try and keep my tomatoes not too much taller than this. So once they get this tall, I'm going to probably try and cut them back to just keep them at a manageable size. I don't want my tomatoes to grow like 10 to 15 feet because that's just going to be too tall. So I'm going to keep them, about the size of the stakes. So let's finish this off. So now I'm just going to go ahead and remove the leaves off the very bottom of these plants to prevent blight and any diseases that could be getting onto the leaves and onto the rest of the tomatoes. So I'm just going to remove those now. The very bottom leaves down here, just going to remove them all. Guys, so I finished weeding the garden, staking all the tomatoes and the watermelon. Now I'm going to put down some fertilizer, and then I'll put the wood chips all over the garden space to prevent the weeds from coming back. So here are the two things I normally use when I'm fertilizing my garden. I have two main fertilizers that I usually use, and that doesn't include my chicken manure and my goat manure as well. I usually put those on twice a year, in the fall and then early in the spring, right before I'm ready to garden. What I'm fertilizing with today is some organic blood meal. And this will really help with putting some nutrients back in the soil. So I really like the blood meal. You spread it out on the garden and then you water it thoroughly. Once I put this down, I'm also going to put one more fertilizer here. And that is my organic plant food. So this is it. It's by Miracle Grow, but it's an organic one. So you can find whichever one works for you. It does have, so it says it's for in-ground gardens, contains slow-release nitrogen up to 2 months, helps to promote strong roots for big, beautiful plants. So I also use this one as well. So I'm gonna put both of those down. I'm just gonna take about a cup and sprinkle it all over the garden, on the ground. I won't get them on the leaves or anything. I'm gonna put about a cup each on the garden, and then I'm gonna put the wood chips down, and then I'll water everything thoroughly. So let's do that. So I have about a cup of this fertilizer. I just pour it into a cup like this, and then I'm just gonna sprinkle it around all the plants. So now it's time to sprinkle on the wood chips to prevent these weeds from regrowing back in here. So let's do that. Okay guys, so this was an exhausting afternoon, but I did get everything done in my garden here. The garden bed up the hill is actually perfect. It has enough wood chips, and I do give it some of my fertilizer pretty often. So it's just this one that really needed the care, and we did all of that today. So everything looks fabulous. I'm just gonna water these guys to make sure that they get a nice drink of water. Take a quick peek at these pawpaws. So we're all done. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I really hope you learned something from it. And if you did, make sure you like the video. But the best way to help me is to share this video on social media. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay peaceful, guys.